Hi, Chris. It's Monday, October 25th, and I want to start off by actually going back and addressing the point that I brought up, the question of smart leading to lazy. And basically, so where the question came from in my mind is that I think a lot of smart people end up being the kinds of people that don't necessarily have to study as much in school, especially like high school, middle school, and earlier. And I think because of that, you can have a lot of cases where smarter people don't necessarily develop the work ethic that people who have to struggle develop. It's not just about like work ethic for like a short period, but more like a longer term work ethic for attacking a long term problem and sticking with it. I think that can be something that is more difficult for smarter people. So work ethic is a component of it, but maybe attention span is there too. And maybe that's just me, because I know for me personally, like I flight from thing to thing to thing pretty quickly. So I would say that I'm to some extent a victim of this. But backing up, there's more involved in it that I want to look at. So you brought up some good points. First of all, about people instances where it's definitely not the case. There's definitely been times that I've, even looking at it from a work ethic perspective, there have been times where I've definitely had a very strong work ethic. And I think overall, looking at how I've worked in my work environments, that's been the case for most of my life. But I can think of examples where it was true for me. And I think that in those instances, I was doing things that didn't really fit in with any goal that I had. So I was just doing it as part of a job, part of a thing that I had to do. And to some extent, it was jobs, situations where I'd gotten comfortable. I had achieved what really I needed to achieve with that job. And that ties into the point that I was kind of getting to with my thought on this. And that's that I don't think it's really necessarily about how smart a person is. It's about them getting to the point that they're achieving the goals that they've set out. So where intelligence can tie into this, I think, is that intelligent people may be quicker at coming up with ways to achieve their goals. They may get to those goals more quickly. They may find unique ways to achieve them such that they knock it out a little bit faster. Once you get to a point that you've achieved what you want to do, I think everyone is inclined to kind of relax a little bit. And to some extent, I think we need to do that anyway. But I think that's the key, that you relax, you slow down, you don't necessarily keep working at the same level, the same intensity that you use to get to the goal initially. This ties in a little bit, and I'll put a link in the doobly-doo. It ties into the management video that I did a while back. So if you want to reference that, feel free. But basically, it talked about motivation through identification being the best way to motivate people. Well, here again, the other thing that I talked about in that was that if you use incentivization as a motivation strategy, you're going to totally end up getting people to go to a certain extent, and once they've got what they need, they stop. I think the one kind of caveat that sets all this apart and maybe prevents you from running into a situation that smart people who start to be successful are bound to just become lazy, is that you do have smart people who know that they're going to be able to achieve more than the average bear. And as a result, those people are going to be inclined to set loftier goals than, say, a bum on the street. So, because of the loftier goals they set, they won't be satisfied at as early a point as the person who didn't set the lofty goal. And that, I guess, answers a question that I posed for myself, that I've been posing for myself over the years, really, about how to take the concept of management through identification and actually apply it in the workforce. And I think what you should do, a manager, instead of trying to incentivize good behaviors necessarily, should try to promote good goals. Because I think that making someone actually identify with a powerful goal that is important to the company will encourage them to identify with the job and to actually perform the job well. So you want people's goals to tie in with what the company does. And I know that I've made a big circle here, and I'm completely off track with the smart equals lazy comment. But in the end, it circles back around, and I think it ties in pretty well with some of the other things that we've talked about. And I think that it does fit. Okay, so moving on to your Facebook question about what to share, what's enough, what's too much, is it safe, etc. It really depends. Because, first of all, it depends on your audience and how you have Facebook configured. If you're only friends with a close group of people that you really know pretty well and are pretty close with, then I think you can share a lot. But I think there are some general constraints that you can apply conceptually over anything that you're thinking about sharing on Facebook, and then you can go from there. So the general constraint, I think, is if you look at your group of friends or the people you're going to be sharing something with, and it's something you wouldn't feel comfortable talking to, say, half of the group or more in person about, then it's probably not something to share. It's probably something that people aren't really interested in hearing about anyway. The biggest thing that comes to mind here is bodily functions. But of course, there are plenty of other examples that we can think of. But from there, let's take a step back, because you're not necessarily just friends with a close group of people that you're really well connected with. You may have a lot of random people that you knew once upon a time that you're friends with on Facebook that you don't really connect with anymore. In that case, well, you may still be able to share just as much. You may want to, not share a few choice details. This is where I probably get into the situation where I begin to think about security, and I don't share things about when I'm not going to be home. For instance, when I was in Tulsa over the last couple of weeks, Tulsa and Vegas, I didn't put that on Facebook. There was not a single time that I said, I am in Oklahoma and we'll be here for 2 weeks. It wasn't something, I didn't want to have anything out there that basically said, hey, I'm not going to be home. You could argue, I've got pictures of my house. Maybe you shouldn't do that for security reasons too. But I think that's okay, especially given the house that we're in being such a clone of so many other houses in the area. That's not a big concern. But there's definitely a concern about things that are being put out on the internet in general, and I think Facebook is a situation where that can be true. Also, you can use Facebook, you can be tied to people that you work with, or maybe that are clients of yours, depending on your job. And that presents a new bit of information, and that you don't want to share stuff with them that could impact your working relationship in a negative way. So, for instance, while I was out in Vegas making posts about how I was doing in various tournaments, and I had just come off of a big success, and my sister made some inane comment about how, she didn't want me to forget that she used to change my diapers. Yeah, that's not really something that needs to be put up on a Facebook page that at the time I was primarily using to communicate with subscribers to Grindr School. So they're seeing a lot of stuff, that's basically intended on communicating them that I know what I'm talking about where poker's concerned. They don't need to hear random details of my childhood from my sister. As I use Facebook now, information from my childhood might actually be a little bit more relevant than stuff about poker, but it's close. But yeah, so impacting working relationships is a big consideration, I think, and that's actually a key too. There's a lot of stuff even now that I don't necessarily talk about, mainly because there are people that I work with that are on my Facebook friends list. The other thing you want to be cognizant of is if you haven't set it up to not be, it's very possible that Facebook is open to the entire internet. And that means that it could impact anything you will try to do in the future too. So you might share something on your Facebook page and then go to a job interview and find out that you shared something on Facebook that now has an impact and prevents you from getting a job. That would really suck. So basically, my only note there is that you should lock down your Facebook account and make sure that you're not sharing anything and everything with everyone. And that actually ties in to everything, to the other stuff we've been talking about too, because you may have stuff that you want to share with some people, not with others. And Facebook allows you to do that. You can set up groups or lists and only share with certain people. I tend not to do that though, because it's kind of a pain in the butt. So if I'm not willing to share it with a lot of people, because I have so many of these different weird situations tied together. So if I'm not willing to share it with coworkers and with potential clients at Grindr School and with friends that I don't know that well and with friends that I do know well and with family, or, say half of each of those lists, I probably don't share it. And family's a big one too that we didn't talk about yet. That's the other thing is, there's probably some stuff that you don't want to tell your mom that you might be otherwise inclined to put on Facebook. So, maybe that means you need to set up a list that doesn't share with your mom. Maybe it just means you don't post it. But I do think it's relevant to make sure that you're not sharing things in a way that's going to be harmful to your personal relationships. And I think two really important things are to not share so much that you harm your relationships with other people, and not share so much that it has an impact to your personal security by putting too much information about yourself out on the internet and making yourself vulnerable. So, like not sharing your street address. Because if people need to know, they probably do. Not sharing your status as far as like going out of town and whatnot. Unless you're sharing it with a locked down group of people. And locking stuff like that down appropriately. Since you use things a little bit differently than I do, I'll ask your thoughts. How do you share? What do you think is too much? What do you think is safe? And with that, I'll call it a day. Chris, don't forget to be awesome.